you see that video that was going around about that guy who got his face literally eaten off by a grizzly? And then he shot the grizzly when it was on top of him?
No.
Oh, dude. He's talking while his face is gone. And he's talking about, like, you could see one eye through this mass. Yeah, I'm going to show it to you real quick. It's right after the attack. The guy that was with him started filming it. So this is the bear, and this is the guy, and that's his face. And this is him talking. The thing chewed his face up.
That's him now?
That's what he looks like now. They rebuilt
God.
his face.
Yeah.
On a fateful early spring day in May of 2011, Wes Perkins, an experienced outdoorsman and the former chief of the Nome Volunteer Fire Department, set out with Dan Stang, a Nome dentist, and his son Edward, a dentistry student, for what they anticipated to be a routine bear hunting trip. Their destination was a rugged terrain up the Kigluaik Mountains, which was about 30 miles from Nome along the Nome Council Road. Now, this part of Alaska, it's known for its robust grizzly bear population and was also a familiar hunting ground for the men, and so they were no strangers to this land. As they navigated the snowy landscape on their snow machines, the hunters' attention was suddenly drawn to a nice-sized bear perched on a hill.
The weather wasn't all that great. It was starting in the day, it was snowing a little bit, kind of overcast. And we saw this bear off in the distance up on the hill, and we knew it was a nice-sized bear, so we went up over towards it, and it disappeared up in the snow had melted. It was on the 15th of May, so the snow melted up on the hilltop.
So coupled with both excitement and what was a very necessary high level of focus, the men pursued the bear over the hill, unaware of the grave turn of events that would soon unfold. As the trio tried to track the bear over the hill, the large grizzly, perhaps sensing danger, would then cleverly conceal itself behind a cluster of willows. Now Perkins, with his years of experience in the Alaskan wilderness, he was still very cautious as he approached the area with his rifle in hand and his eyes peeled for any movement ahead of him. Unfortunately, what Wes didn't realize was that the bear was in a perfect ambush position just meters away from him.
Eventually went around the hill and found the tracks and was passing the bear down. It was off a few miles off ahead of us. And so we were driving along the creek, following his tracks, and it then disappeared. Ed was ahead of me, and I was right behind him. I stopped, not realizing that the bear was only 70 feet away in the hole, and saw the hole.
Just moments later, in the blink of an eye, the quiet of the Alaskan wilderness was suddenly shattered by piercing screams as the bear, feeling cornered and threatened, then burst forth from its hiding place with startling aggression, and Perkins was of course caught off guard by this, found himself in a helpless situation as the grizzly bear, known for their raw power and survival instincts, then lunged at him with all its might. Now, with the bear's attack being so swift and brutal, Perkins didn't even have time to cover his face, and he was overwhelmed by the sheer force of the animal, which in a matter of seconds inflicted life-threatening injuries to him, brutally ripping off his lower jaw as well as his left eye socket and ripping off half of his tongue. And it was in this critical moment that Perkins, who had training as a paramedic, managed to critically keep his airway open, fighting to stay conscious, knowing that if he passed out, it could mean death.
I had to open my airway because I had a bunch of nuts here and everything was all tore up.
Dan and Edward, who were nearby, shocked and frozen in horror at what they were witnessing, would then manage to shoot the bear a total of 5 times, causing it to drop dead and most likely saving Perkins' life.
Well, I started to drive away, and next thing I look back, and the bear's on top of him. So I just stopped and grabbed my gun out of my scabbard and started walking at the bear and shooting. My son, he was just outboard of me, and then he's seen what's going on, so he come back around, and he's over on this side. And by that time, the bear had spun around, and he was charging me. He was coming right across Wesley, charging me. And my son saved my life. And as soon as he started hitting it, and the bear right away, instead of keeping on coming, turned and went about as far as that telephone pole, maybe just a little bit further. And so I pushed him back down, face into the snow, and I said, Wesley, you gotta just stay real still, keep your face in the snow, keep your face in the snow.
He then quickly administered Wes with first aid and made an urgent call for help. Nate Perkins, who was a family member of Wes, would then, upon receiving the distressing news, orchestrate a swift and efficient rescue operation, and not long after, a helicopter piloted by Ben Rowe was dispatched and arrived at the scene in just over an hour.
I went for the ham radio, and I just keyed it up and said, "This kill 0HJ, calling for any station." And guess who instantly come right on? His brother was just coming out of his house in town and heard me, and he was just jumping in his truck. And I said, "Yeah, I got you, Dan. What's going on?" Got a bear mauling. Wesley's all tore up. We need a helicopter here. So I told him exactly where we were, and then they came. Probably were there within maybe an hour.
Perkins was then airlifted to a hospital in Nome for immediate emergency treatment, and due to the severity of his injuries, he was later flown to Anchorage and subsequently transferred to the Harborview Medical Center in Seattle for specialized reconstructive surgery. Now, somehow, miraculously, despite his grievous injuries, he had undergone 26 surgeries, reconstructive surgeries to be more specific, and as you can see from his interview footage, they managed to do a really good job, especially considering how Wes looked right after the attack.
In the last 3 months, I was able to swallow a full-size vitamin that I couldn't swallow 5 months ago. I told one. People that don't see me but know me, year after year say, "Wow, you're talking better," all kinds of stuff.
Reflecting on the incident, Perkins went on to acknowledge the unpredictability as well as the inherent risks of encountering wild animals in their natural habitat, and his harrowing experience went on to serve as a stark reminder of the respect as well as the caution necessary for venturing into the wilderness, especially in places that formidable creatures like bears call home.
But you can see, it has two sides on it. It's still attached to them. There's people that have it a lot worse than I do, still to this day, but the whole thing is that, you just don't know what the outcome is going to be. You just continue to try to do better and do better. I was lucky that I was able to learn how to talk again. I had my upper voice was damaged and some stuff in my mouth was damaged, but I'm still able to do all that.
Wes also realizes that he was extremely lucky to be alive, and if it weren't for the Stangs and the efforts of his son Ed, as well as the efficient rescue led by Nate, he most likely would not be alive today to tell his story. If this episode piqued your interest, then our previous episode about a man who used the venomous cobra to murder his wife as well as his 2-year-old daughter is likely to do the same. You can find it on the end screen of this video.